Welcome to the next installment of the PhoneUX Protocol, where I run the phones through 5 separate tests and categories to see how well they perform. On this one, I'm going to be covering the S25 Edge. Let's dive right into it. So the first category that I'm going to be covering is the ergonomics, and I'm going to be starting with the pinky shelf test. Right off the bat, I feel how light this phone is. It's the lightest phone, if not the second lightest phone in the Samsung lineup for the S series. The base S series is, I think, only 1 or 2 grams different, so this is actually comparable to a small phone, even though it's a pretty big phone. What helps it is the ultra slim design, which is strengthened by titanium, so we don't really have to worry about it bending or anything. All this makes it really comfortable to hold. There's also nothing sharp in the bottom. If anything, the USB-C section is a little bit on the thin side, but because it's so light, it's not really going to cause any sort of pressure or discomfort from that. The other thing that I noticed while I'm using it is that, it's a big phone in terms of screen size. So for small to medium size hands, it could be a bit difficult to reach around or reach across. And what actually makes it even harder is just how slick the phone is. This is probably the slickest phone I have used yet. And it's probably aided by how thin it is, because there's no the side rails are not too thick to really grab on as you're going across. So all of this together basically just makes this phone the slickest phone I've used. So you gotta be very careful when holding it, at least without a case. I think this phone actually would benefit from a thin case for the extra grip, and with that a thin case, it's probably gonna be as thick as the normal phones. So there is a benefit to it. You're not losing the benefits just because you add a case to it. And then the last thing I want to cover is just how well balanced it is. This one actually might be perfectly balanced. It seems like it's right at 50%, which is, I think, what these companies aim for. And that's gonna help in making sure that it stays firm in your hand and not give you that pressure from the top, which would make it less stable on your hand. So as far as ergonomics goes, I would rate this phone a 9 out of 10. I mean, that's basically what this phone was designed for, so having that score is not surprising at all. The next thing that I want to cover is the camera speed. And it being Samsung and having the same sensor and app as the Z Fold 7, it's gonna have the same exact results as my previous video. So let's go over that real quick. So when the camera is up and running, the shutter speed is actually good. They mainly resolved that slow shutter speed issue, or that shutter lag issue. The difference is that I think Samsung shoots at a slower shutter speed than the other phones in the basic app. So what that means is that on subjects like animals or kids, there is a chance that you get a slightly blurry photo because it's shooting I think it's shooting at the portrait speed, the one that's recommended for portraits, which is fine, but anything in movement is not going to catch. But it has to be a noticeable movement, so it's nothing to really worry about. It's just it has that same issue as it's always had. Now onto how fast it turns on from the pocket. This one has the exact same issue as the Z Fold 7, where when you turn it on with the quick settings, it has a bit of a delay before it's ready to shoot. Definitely a longer delay than the Pixel Fold that I tested out earlier. But that's just, to get the phone out of your pocket and ready to shoot. With Samsung, you have the benefits of being able to move around your modes. So in case you need to go to a different mode after you bring it up quickly, you can actually set it up to the modes that you use the most and make it quicker for you in that sense. So for the basic photo app, I would say is a little bit slower on the quick startup way. But for the other modes, it's going to be faster than on other phones. So for the camera speed, the S25 Edge is going to get a 7 out of 10. Number 3 is the haptics. And this one is going to have a lot of the same benefits and downsides as the Z Fold 7, because they both have basically the thin profile, which kind of leads to a weaker motor. But it's going to be a bit weaker than the regular models of the same series, like the S25, S25 Plus. I guess the one that's close to this would be S25 Plus. But the haptics are still great. They're sharp. They're not tingy. They don't make any noise, honestly, like the rattling noises that you get on cheaper phones. And with Samsung, you can boost it or lower it because it comes out of the box and set in the middle. So you actually have the option to make it stronger or softer. Actually, the stronger ones are actually kind of strong, than a bit too strong for me. So I kind of like it in the middle, maybe one notch up. So it's definitely powerful enough and provides good feedback. You do get some nice interactions, nothing in the volumes in between. But when you hit the bottom or the top, you get a little tap letting you know that you reached it. So Samsung does have can use it a bit more than they already do. Like they could utilize it a bit more on some other parts of the phone, but overall it's a great feeling, and they do use it in important parts anyway to kind of help you know that you did something. So in terms of the haptics, I would give it an 8 out of 10. The next category that I'm going to be covering is the Immersion, specifically talking about the Slab style. I would say this is one of the most immersive phones that I've used. It's very light, so you're not feeling it in your hand. It has a great large screen with thin bezels, and the punch hole is far up and small. So when you're watching a video, it actually doesn't interfere or anything. So as you can see here, there's a lot of space. Even a 2:1 aspect ratio is gonna get close, but at most it'll touch the edge of the camera. So it's still not really going to interfere with the picture. It's also a very bright screen, indoor and outdoor. I mean, you're not going to have any trouble seeing it. And Samsung also offers the anti-glare screen protector for the S25 Edge, which is $25. That's definitely worth it because it's going to give you this very similar, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but very similar quality of anti-reflectiveness as the S25 Ultra, which is always a plus. That is a game changer in terms of how easy it is to see the screen. You can kind of compare that here because I have the Z Fold 7 here that has a screen protector. And if I capture it in there somewhere, you can see that the reflection is like not even half, maybe. It's reduced by quite a lot. Definitely worth getting that. And then also the speakers are very balanced. Obviously, most of the bass comes out of the bottom one, but in terms of the highs and mids, it's actually the closest one I've tested so far from the 3 phones, and it actually gives you a good stereo sound when you're watching it, in landscape mode. So I would actually give the S25 Edge a score of 8 out of 10 for immersion. And then the last category is going to be the multitasking, which of course this is even more of a difference between the foldables and the slabs because foldables are the kings of multitasking. So with multitasking here, you can have the split screen. So now that I have it set up, so multitasking is, as good as it gets for the slab phone. You have the 50-50 split, basically top to bottom, because there's no way to do it sideways like a foldable. Then you have the ability to do the new 90-10, which is a very good one for having basically a full screen experience. It's not quite full screen, but it basically is. And then you can even go in between and kind of adjust it as you need it. So with Samsung, you also have the ability to have a floating window where you can kind of have it minimized, move around so it's not in the way, and then tap it whenever you want to review it. So you have options here, and in addition to that, you can swipe down here and answer any messages that you might have. So it's actually, in terms of slab phones, really good for multitasking, but of course can't really compare it to the other style. So for multitasking, I will give it a 6 out of 10, which is probably the highest I could really give a slab phone, honestly. So the S25 Edge gets a total score of 38 out of 50 points. And that's honestly amazing, especially considering that it's going to get a lower score by default on multitasking because it just doesn't compete with the other options like foldables. And there you have it, the S25 Edge. And remember to like and subscribe and stick around for the next one in 2 weeks, which I'm going to be covering the same test on the S20 to see how much better the experience has gotten over the years.